Hello, World Wide Web. Welcome to the Hangin with Web Show. I'm GW Pomichter. Thanks for logging on and tuning in. If you haven't already, we remind you, go on down and hit subscribe. Make sure you comment on these videos. Don't forget to check out the descriptions for information and web links for our guests and our partners. We are here at Space Coast Comic-Con in Cocoa, Florida, and we are hanging with Vincent Roth, the executive producer of Surge of Power, Revenge of the Sequel. Thanks for hanging with us, man.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here, Garrett. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Let's talk Surge of Power.
Yep.
Okay. Tell us what can we expect from this film?
Yeah. Okay. Well, this is a sequel, as the title suggests. This is essentially the movie
We're
poster.
going to go ahead and spin that up so everybody can see it out there on the web.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah,
okay.
And
this is a sequel to a film I made like a decade ago called Surge of Power: The Stuff of Heroes, which introduced the first openly gay superhero to the big screen. And it also featured 20 celebrities in the movie. Folks like Nichelle Nichols, who's the original Uhura from Star Trek.
Yep.
Lou Ferrigno, who we all know as the Incredible Hulk. Noel Neill, the late Noel Neill, who played the original Lois Lane from The Adventures of Superman. So we had 20 celebrities come join us for the first film. It was a feature film. We did our screening phase from 2004 to 2006, playing in film festivals and comic conventions. Then it got released in 2006. We did a limited theatrical release and then home video. And it's done its thing over the years. It streamed on Netflix. It was played on one of the cable stations. And so colleagues of mine kept pestering me. They're like, are you going to make a sequel? You got to make a sequel. Like, every superhero has a sequel. So we made a sequel, and hence the title, Surge of Power: Revenge of the Sequel.
Fantastic.
So we're bringing our gay superhero back and also introducing the first openly gay supervillain to the big screen. And this time we have over 50 stars in the movie. Yeah.
Wow.
And the first film was done a little more in the flavor of the Batman Adam West TV show.
Okay, so a little campy. A little bit
campy, yep, exactly. And the celebrities kind of popping in and out.
How did audiences receive the first openly gay superhero?
Very well, and the interesting thing I think about the sequel
because this is a few years back now, so
it's been
this
a
is
big
really
change.
Before there's a mainstreaming in regular culture.
Yes.
So now you got the sequel. Now let me ask you this. I'm sure this is a question you get a lot. When you're making a film and you've got your first openly gay superhero, and that's sort of a great pitch line, how do you avoid being too campy with that, being over the top?
Well, for me...
Or is that something that you just sort of, let's just do it. Let's get in there and make the noise with it.
Well, there is some serious storylines going on. So it's not as campy as the Batman Adam West. It's a little more serious than that. I felt that humor was a good way to introduce a gay character because I think mainstream audiences have been a little more comfortable with gay characters in a humorous setting. So like Will and Grace.
Will and Grace.
And I think Will and Grace's success was it was grounded in humor, and I think that's where mainstream audiences feel a bit more comfortable, and that's a little bit more like my personality. I know other filmmakers, they get a little more, they're more dramatic, or they're darker, or they do horror or whatever other types of genre, but I think more of like my style and my personality is a little bit more upbeat, a little bit more colorful, and so it's a more comfortable environment for me to be in as well.
Well, and I think it's easier for audiences to deal with uncomfortable topics if you make them laugh.
Yes.
And you bring that wall down and make them feel, like you said, like Will and Grace. You make me laugh, and then I stop noticing the thing that makes me uncomfortable, and I start becoming more comfortable with it.
Yeah, and realizing that's not an issue. Like,
let
it go.
And it literally goes from being, this is a key point to the character, to being, this is just a thing that happens with the character. And that's amazing. The sequel now, bringing all that back together again after many years. How difficult was that?
Oh, it was a huge challenge. It's kind of funny. People said, like, when I made the first film...
They all wanted you to do another one. They just, oh, you want me to come back and do what?
Yeah. Well, it's kind of funny. The director for the first film, he said, after we finished the first one, he goes, this is the toughest film you ever make. He said, everything after this is easier, and that was not the case. The sequel was a lot more challenging. Now, the first film we actually shot on film, 35 millimeter film, widescreen CinemaScope, like any big movie picture. Nowadays, everything's done in digital. You know, Star Wars really kind of like broke that barrier.
Yeah.
Like everything is done digital now. But it was a bigger cast and crew. The first movie was 125.
You have quite the. We're looking down here, and I know everybody will see. We have quite the cast.
Yeah. Oh, it goes on and on. We have
This
50. There are
50
over
cameo.
50 stars throughout the film. It just
Wow.
goes on and on and on. And that too was a challenge, like dealing with them and their agents and such. So the first film was 125 cast and crew, including 20 celebrities. The sequel is 271 cast and crew, including
Wow.
over 50 stars. So it was a much bigger environment, much bigger production, a lot more people to work with. But you know, they brought a lot to the table as well. So, like, you know, for example, Linda Blair, who we all know from the Exorcist movies,
Yes.
and Gil Gerard, who we know as Buck
Buck
Rogers. They play the homophobic parents of my villain, the Metal Master. Because folk from the first film, fans, reviewers, people wanted to see more about the villain and why is he bad, and said, okay, well, let's explore that.
Wow.
You know, reviewers from the first film said, okay, well, great, you put a gay superhero up there, but you really didn't explore any issues. Because I was really more spoofing the superhero genre than I was dealing with. It just happened to be a superhero character who happened to be gay. It wasn't a
Okay.
gay movie. It wasn't a gay superhero. You know what I'm
Well,
saying?
and of course, it was 10 years before
Yeah.
you could actually really have a discussion anyway.
I think
So-
you're right. I think you're absolutely right about that. I think 10 years later, people do want to see more. They do want to hear more. The mainstream audience is open. I mean, you even see this with, like, you know, racial issues.
Yes.
Obviously, we're dealing with that a lot more than society maybe
Well,
wanted
and
to
in
deal with.
science
years
fiction
ago.
and fantasy and superheroes, we've been talking about those issues since the 50s and 60s quietly. It's been metaphor. It's been,
Yeah.
you know, now we can do it a little bit more overtly, and then we have the freedom to do that because people are ready for the conversation.
You know what, Garrett? I think you're absolutely right. And it's interesting that you mentioned the X-Men movies, X-Men comics, that sort of allegory of mutants being feared.
Yeah, well,
and
it's
being
okay to
different.
hate. It's okay to hate an alien or a mutant. And when we make it okay for a second, then we can explore why it happens. So
Yeah.
if it's okay to be homophobic as a person in this universe, then we can explore, well, why does it exist at all? It's okay for me to be that way. So now that you've taken down my barriers, tell me why I feel this way.
Yeah,
That's an interesting way to do that.
And we've stripped out the allegory. So where the X-Men comics sort of like use the mutant thing as a sort of allegory to to homophobia and to
Racial
being-
relations and
yeah.
yes.
We've sort of stripped that out and we deal with it head on as people fear and hate them because they're gay. Homophobia needs to be dealt with, and so we're right out in the open with it.
That's really kind of cool, and it's really kind of interesting. You have this superhero, and the superhero swoops in and is known for swooping in and saving the day, and everybody loves him. So what happens when everybody who loves you finds out that you're not their ideal? That's an interesting way to put that in front of an audience and say,
Yeah.
hey, what would you think if it turned out that Superman, wasn't a ladies' man?
Yeah.
How are audiences? What are you finding so far? People loving what you've got?
I think things have changed in 10 years, and part of the reason why I have a lot of the celebrities and talent in there is to appeal to a mainstream audience who might not otherwise want to see, like, do I want to see a gay superhero movie? Is that a gay movie? Am I going to be interested in that? I want them to at least see, like, oh, there's these other people, these other stars in it that I've seen from Star Trek and from the Incredible Hulk and from these other shows. And find other things that are appealing. But I also hope that here we are 10 years later, I hope that characteristic doesn't matter. I mean, pretty soon we're going to have, Marvel's going to be having a Black Panther movie, right?
Yes.
Black Panther was just introduced in the Captain America movie. Are people going to look at
To
that
a
and say this is a...
resounding welcome to
Yes.
the team, which was awesome.
Now, are
to
people
see.
going to say, oh, it's a black superhero? Are you going to go see the black superhero movie, right?
Interesting.
People aren't going to say that.
That's true.
Right? They're not going
Yeah.
to say that about Black Panther. So I hope that society's evolved enough that they don't say that about Surge of Power. Oh, the gay superhero. Are you going to see the gay superhero movie, right?
Yeah, it is. I was just going to ask you, because that led me to my next question, which was, how do you avoid, in the age of streaming and online and things, how do you avoid being pigeonholed? Because nowadays, everything is categorized. So when I go to Netflix, I can see action, I can see adventure, I can see horror, I can see sci-fi, and I guess I just started noticing maybe a year ago, and it was only because I wouldn't have noticed it other than them pointing it out, that there was a new category that was gay and lesbian films. And the very first thing I thought to myself is, are those films made for gay and lesbian people, or are those films about gay? What does that mean?
Yeah.
What does that category mean?
Well, to extend that further, does that mean it can't fit in another category like comedy
There
or
we go.
action,
Exactly.
or does that mean it's only in that bucket? Well, Garrett, I can't completely answer that because with the first film, I did notice when it was in Blockbuster, it would be on different shelves in different blockbusters. Sometimes it would be on action, sometimes it would be on comedy. Sometimes if it was a big enough blockbuster, depending on what metropolitan environment, they had a gay and lesbian section. So Surge the Power of the Stuff of Heroes sometimes is in a different place, I guess, depending on where they thought it made most sense to place it.
So it's kind of the marketing guy goes, that fits into eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
Yeah. Now, how do I avoid that? I'm not sure, but I can at least say, here we are 10 years later, and we're just coming out the gate. We just actually premiered this yesterday. We just played this yesterday.
Yes, I know.
At the convention here, and then
what did the audience here think?
Very nice. It was very well received.
Awesome.
And we also played. This is our premiere weekend. We premiered at the Burbank International Film Festival on Thursday night in LA, and then I flew here. I flew to Orlando Friday to be here for Saturday to play here. And one of the things that's really heartwarming is, here we are, the first several screenings out the gate are all mainstream environments.
Yeah.
We did a sneak preview at Salt Lake Comic-Con, which is the third largest comic convention in the nation. And then we premiered at Burbank International Film Festival, and now here at Space Coast. And the next up is October 1st in San Diego at a Doctor Who convention, San Diego WhoCon.
Awesome.
So these are not gay and lesbian film festivals.
Not by any.
These are mainstream environments.
I guess the goal would always be that we don't have to have such things as a gay and lesbian film festival, or it just is a film festival. Exactly. That would be the goal, right?
Exactly, and that's why I'm saying I'll find it interesting when the Black Panther movie comes out. Are people going to talk about it? Did you see the black superhero movie?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a black superhero. I hope that society has gotten to a point where that doesn't even enter the discussion. Well, I think that 10 years later, I find it surprising that no one else has put a gay superhero up on the big screen. The only thing close is Marvel in their Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. TV program. There's a minor character that.
And I also understand not long ago, didn't we? I just read it in comic books. There
have been several.
Created some characters now in the last 5 or 6 years. They've altered some characters to give them a backstory.
Yes.
Green Lantern, I think, was one example.
And Iceman. They've adjusted. I think the first comic book character they introduced was North Star. Well, he was already in Alpha Flight in Marvel Comics, and back in the early '90s, he came out and finally said he was gay, and so that was the first comic book openly gay character. But then
we learned something on this show. If you're watching this show, you're going to learn a few things.
But then they sort of tucked that away and they didn't really explore it much. Whereas, I don't have anything to hide in the Surge of Power movies.
There it is.
No one else is. There aren't comic distributors, trying to squash the message and such. And even with the character that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. introduced in the TV program, you hear about a man in his life, but you never see it.
Yeah.
Very sterile, very sanitized gay character. So, okay, great. You've introduced your first openly gay cinematic hero, but it's as sterilized as black people were decades ago.
Yeah.
You didn't see them in relationships. You didn't see, right?
Yeah, it was just sort of.
There was something still uncomfortable to mainstream society.
In those days, I think they just thought, okay, they're there, it's enough.
Yes. The tokenism.
Yes.
That tokenism is still a bit there.
So now, let me ask you: you're filming a superhero movie. You've got you're bringing 50 different celebrities on and off the set and working with all of those people. What is probably the most memorable or standout moment on the set for you this time around?
I'll tell you, Linda Blair and Gil Gerard. There were a couple of seminal moments. Our final shooting day was probably one of the most exciting for me because we had kind of two scenes going on. One that was like the beginning of the film, and later in the day was like the end of the film. And the beginning of the film was a bar scene, and the bartender is played by John Newton, who was Superboy, and the cocktail waitress was played by Rebecca Saab, who was the original Invisible Woman from the original Fantastic Four movie. So this Marvel DC thing going on, and it turns out later that they're enemies. So it's sort of like there's this tension on scene. And then later in the day, was Robert Picardo, who plays the male form of Nichelle Nichols' character, Omen. And then Eric Roberts, who's our big star. We introduced Omen's enemy character, Augur. So that was a big day for us because it was like these polarizations of the good guy, bad guy, and good guy, bad guy, and very prominent characters. You know, Robert Picardo played the Doctor from Star Trek Voyager, and Eric Roberts has played in so many things. The biggest thing that stands out in my mind after all the shooting and all the people was when we were shooting Linda Blair and Gil Gerard, we had a living room set. Like I said, they play the parents to my character's villain. And, we were having some difficulties with the shooting and such, but there was this point where it all came together, and the director and I were sitting on the floor, and Linda and Gil were sitting in their chairs, and it all clicked. It clicked between the two of them. When we were running through some lines and talking, and magic was happening. Even though we had some challenges and some difficulties and whatnot, and stress and craziness, but magic happened in that moment, and okay.
If you were a box of cereal, what would you be? Believe it or not, somebody on Facebook actually thinks that's important.
Well, I would have to say Blueberry.
Blueberry.
Yes. Do I have to answer the why?
Oh, God, yes.
Oh, okay.
You got a Barbara Walters on that one. Go.
Well, first off,
if he cries over Blueberry, this is going to be a million views.
Well, because blue is the color of Surge.
Blue is the color of Surge.
Yeah. Okay. And I love blueberries.
Very good.
Okay. And when I saw the monster cereals, I thought the ghost was like this the little cute thing, which I hope I'm a little cute thing. And that's just the word blueberry. Just like sounds like funny.
Yeah,
cute.
it is funny.
Yeah.
It just rolls.
There's something sort of crunchy and sweet about it, and I hope that there's something crunchy and sweet about me too.
All right, I'm going to look up here now. And all right, so what do you sing in the shower?
Oh, well, my character sings his theme song in the shower.
His theme song.
He hums his hymn da 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 while he's shampooing and.
There you superheroes in the shower.
He sings his
song.
theme song.
That's right.
That's plays throughout the movie. And
I want you all now to go home and think about that because you've all watched X-Men and you Superman. So imagine Chris Reeves. Dun, 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 dun. See, that's what you want to see. That's right.
My character,
all right. So what is the last thing you took a picture of on your phone?
The very last thing. Well, so that it ties into a part of the experience here is at the end of the sequel, we sort of start to sow the seeds for a third film.
Okay.
And I invited colleagues of mine that have their own already existing superhero characters.
Okay.
And I asked them to contribute their characters to this one particular scene where Nichelle Nichols, in her Omen character form, looks up at their little magic portals. It's kind of like mirror, mirror on the wall kind of thing, and sees some other superheroes. And so they each gave me some footage to include of their characters. And their characters come from, one of them is called Photon. He comes from another superhero movie. One of them is called Night Seeker. He's in a series of caption novels.
Wow.
One is called The Pink Hammer. Who's in a comic book for like the past 3 years. And when we were setting up the screening here, I asked them all if they could come here. And so I was able to encourage all the actors to come. And not only that, was when I got them to agree to come here, I said, can you bring your outfits? It would be great if we could all suit up and take pictures together like the team. And so that's what we took. I mean, actually used the little photo area and we took pictures of us all suited up.
We got to have one. Get the Florida con otters over there. Tell them we want one of those. That's going to be great.
I'll send it to you,
Yeah, we got to wrap it up here, folks. So we want to say a special thanks to Something Unique Magazine, Florida Book News, Famous Faces and Funnies, the Wordfire Press Team, Historical Miniature Gaming Society, the South Chapter for sharing these videos on the World Wide Web. We have been here all weekend long at Space Coast Comic Con at the Holiday Inn Express in Cocoa, Florida. Thank you, David Grace and Jake Estrada, for inviting us in. I'm GW Pomichter, and we've been hanging with Vincent Roth, the executive producer of Surge of Power. Revenge of the Sequel is coming to a convention or a festival near you. Look that up, find out more about that. You can find the original probably somewhere out there.
Actually, yes, it's on our website. If you go to surgeofpower.org, You can actually watch the first movie. It streams. There's a button on every page that says "Watch First Movie." You click on that, and you can see the
Awesome.
first movie.
So look down in the description for the link to that. Remember, folks, subscribe, log on, tune in, and see who we're hanging with next.
Wow.